Today, I want to talk about failure. I want to talk about the idea of being your own worst enemy and how that can affect your life for the worse. But I also want to talk about a story that inspired me. I want to talk about how you can overcome yourself in those tough times. And I want to talk about how this very special piece of media helped me look at things differently and helped me appreciate my own ongoing journey. Today, I want to talk about Frieren, Beyond Journey's End. It is incredible and it deserves your time and attention. I want to talk about how it inspired me to keep working on myself. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. So beware spoilers if you haven't seen it. Go watch it or I'm going to get real upset. And trust me, you don't want that. So I'm going to be jumping in a little bit into the series to talk about what I want to talk about. And I want to talk about this guy. This right here is Stark. He's a Giga Chad. And also, he's probably one of my favorite characters from any recent piece of media that I've seen over the past couple of years. He's just really baller, and I love him. I'm going to be using personal experiences to relate and compare against a bit of a story arc that he goes through within the show. So yeah, buckle in, and here we go. When we are first introduced to him, we are told that he is the hero of this village that Frieren and Fern are visiting. We're also told that he is protecting it from a dragon that's nearby. And he's been here for a few years, and his presence essentially is keeping the dragon at bay, right? Keeping the people safe. And if you know anything about the show, which again you should, you would know that this dragon is pretty tough, like it means business. Frieren and Fern had to run away from it earlier. That kind of gives you a first impression of how tough this person might be if he's solo by himself, is keeping it at bay. He must be a pretty big deal, right? And so when we first see him, we see him hanging out with some of the villagers, some of the kids from the village. He seems like a nice enough guy, and it's a nice scene that sets up his character and sets the stage for the struggles to come. Because the moment he's actually pressed on it, when he's talked to alone, one-on-one, about the situation with the dragon, his story starts to crack a little bit, because it turns out that he didn't even fight it. In fact, he was so scared that he may as well have been a frozen statue. Basically, in his words, he accidentally his way through the situation, because it turns out that Stark, he's a bit of a coward. You get the idea that he's a good guy at heart, but he really has not had a whole lot of combat experience, and he's pretty scared by this creature who could potentially kill him. And a little detail I like here is that after this conversation that Frieren has with him, she basically sits there and she says that she knows he can do it. She's seen the fractured rock behind him without any words. She looks at it and she recognizes that he can do this damage, and she knows the potential. She sees the potential, even if Stark himself can't see that potential yet. And that is one of the major themes I want to talk about in this video, is about how you can be one of your own worst enemies, and I'll get to that a little bit later. So for now, we'll continue on. We see a glimpse of Stark at night. He's upset. He's mostly upset with himself. He doesn't say a word. There's no dialogue. We just see him pondering. And then we immediately cut to some townspeople complimenting him. Even if he can't see it, other people do, right? In a flashback, we learn that Isen, former member of Frieren's party of heroes, is the individual who trained Stark to be a warrior, right? Taught him everything he knew. Isen acknowledges that Stark is cowardly, just like himself, but also remarks that Stark is someone who can fight for others. Later on, we see Stark open up to Fern about why he trains. He tells her before he showed up that people in the village lived in fear of the dragon, but now thanks to him, they live happily, even though he hasn't done anything. In one breath, he says his presence has brought happiness to an entire village for years. Then in the next breath, he diminishes his own accomplishments. He has no self-confidence. He fully believes that if he fights this dragon, he'll die, but he says he stays to defend the village anyway. Pretty much every character in this fantasy anime is relatable, but this passive self-loathing that Stark exudes, it hits pretty close to home for me, and it's why I wanted to make this video in the first place. It's a classic example of how people can be their worst enemies. How can one overcome themselves after all, when all you can see is the worst parts of yourself? While he berates himself and diminishes his own accomplishments, he tells Fern how he really got his scar that's on his face, that his teacher hit him. And Stark assumes it was an utter disappointment. Another example of how he preemptively puts himself down. He's telling a story about how someone who was his father figure and a teacher at the time hit him, and even then, he puts himself down. The human mind is terrifying, dude. It's something else. Fern tells him that she sees his resolve despite his fear. She encourages him here, even though Stark himself seems to question it. He just has a habit of slightly second-guessing anybody and everybody who would dare put their faith in him. It doesn't matter that this person has just admitted that her first impression about him was incorrect. He still isn't so sure about it. So the next day, Stark shows up and tells Frieren to finish the dragon if he dies fighting it. He's already assuming the worst outcome for himself, and he still wants to make sure that the villagers are safe. He shows up and he has no confidence that he can get the job done, but he's not worried about himself. He's already assumed he's a goner. I love this dude. Frieren can't understand why he'd be so willing to die for these people, but that's more of a her being emotionally challenged issue that maybe I'll talk about in a different video. So anyways, the group steps up to the dragon's lair and Stark is trembling. He can't help it. He's scared, but his fears brought him this far. And honestly, it's nothing to be afraid of, because even though a couple of strangers are asking him for a lot, and it's a big ask, he's still here, isn't he? And man, if you've seen the show, I really don't feel like I need to talk about this scene, but I mean, I'm going to anyway, because it's a 10 out of 10 scene. Stark pulls up to this dragon, dude. It's massive. It is so much bigger than him. It's actually messed up. But he reminds himself about what Fern said, that all he needs is resolve. And he takes comfort in the fact that Eisen, his teacher, was scared too. He takes a deep breath, and despite his fear, despite being a coward, he charges. He's locked the hell in. It's really fantastic to watch. The animation helps, of course. He's fast, he's strong, he's been training for this. He's more than ready. He strikes once, and as he does, we hear Frieren tell Fern the real reason Eisen hit him. It wasn't because he was disappointed in him or upset with him. Eisen tells Frieren that he was scared of Stark, amazed at how strong he could become, not disgusted with how weak he was. Eisen was scared of Stark's strength. That's why he hit him in that moment. Maybe he was right to be scared, because Stark's next attack lands square on the dragon's noggin, killing it instantly, even if he doesn't realize it yet. I really enjoy that they added the little detail of the dragon's pupil contracting when he sees Stark, because this dragon has been afraid of this dude for years, and it's like, oh no, this guy's pulling up. Like, it's a cool detail. I liked it, and I like the real life inspiration, because this is something that happens in like cats and stuff, I guess, like where their pupils will contract. Like, a lot of the times it's for light purposes or whatever. There's like a lot of light getting in their eyes, but it can also be because they're scared or angry or other stuff like that. So yeah, cool detail. I really like how, even though he just did it himself, he questions himself. Stark sits there and he says, he's screaming at Frieren to take the shot, like finish it off. Like, I did my part. Come on, you need to do your part. He still can't even believe his own accomplishment, even though he literally just did it. Someone else has to tell him that he killed it. Frieren says it's already dead. You've already succeeded. And he takes a second look at it and he's like, I already killed it? Like, I did that myself? Like, that is so relatable to me. He questions himself if he's actually done it. He just did it, literally. And he still can't even believe it. It can be really hard to have an honest internal dialogue with yourself and praise yourself for something you know is noteworthy, even if you'd give someone else full credit for doing the same exact thing you just did. But when it's you, when you're the one who does it, doesn't count. And that way, I feel like Stark is his own worst enemy. And that's something I can really relate to. Because despite a huge achievement, this won't be the last time Stark questions himself or struggles with his self-image. Anybody who struggles with depression or anxiety knows this all too well. We can often be our worst enemy, second-guessing everything we do. And I think that a part of that is the consistency with which we tend to attack ourselves. Who's more critical of you than the voice inside your head, after all? Who knows what you don't want to hear better than you? It's a testament to how human these characters are written that this won't be the last time Stark struggles with this. To illustrate my point, we're going to move ahead a little bit. A few episodes later, Frieren tries to attack some demons in a town and gets thrown in elf jail. Stark and Fern are talking about what they should do about these demons, and they come to the conclusion that they need to get Frieren out of jail and let her handle it. As they are discussing it, Stark mentions how afraid of them he is. He says that he and Fern wouldn't stand a chance against these demons, once again putting himself down before anything has even happened. This guy soloed a dragon, but his self-image is so poor that these two demons, there's no shot. After all, one of them didn't even look his way, which must mean that this guy thinks he can kill them at any time. And of course this guy has to be right, you know? Stark gives off the vibe that he agrees, at least. Ultimately, they decide to do something, even though Stark admits he's still terrified. I mean, hell, he spilled his drink all over his pants and made it look like he peed, so obviously he must be scared. Again, I just adore this consistency. People don't grow instantly. It's a process. It can be really easy to slip back into a negative mindset or headspace, even after you have done well or made decent progress in life. A show with weaker writing would have had Stark be completely 100% confident in his abilities, and his lack of confidence never would have been brought up again. After Frieren escapes, they end up asking her for help, and Stark is quick to double down on his assumption that they stand no chance without her, to which Frieren replies that she doesn't think that's the case. And even after that, Stark still begs for her help and says it's impossible for them. It might be a moment played for laughs, but I think it really shows just how deep this issue runs within him. He hasn't even seen what these two can do, and he's begging for help because he has that little faith in himself. I want to say though that to his credit, just as before, he comes to help. Like, he shows up. They sneak into a castle together to save someone who's taken and held hostage by these demons, and he's still shaking when he's trying to untie this dude. The guy he's trying to save tells him to leave, but Stark, being the Giga Chad that he doesn't realize he is, sticks it out and faces his fears as the demons he's so afraid of walk into the room. The demons give him another chance to leave, but still he doesn't take it. He finds the resolve and goes on the offensive, landing the first strike on someone who wouldn't even look at him as an equal. Whether or not this was intentional, he's already closed the gap between himself and this source of fear, even if he doesn't know it. It's really quite admirable. He's commended by Lugner, and due to his actions, he and Fern are able to rescue the guy they came here for. But this quick encounter does a good job to set the stage for the main event. Just as a little aside, I really love this brief moment where it seems like Stark is suggesting that he's going to take both of the demons on by himself, only for it to be revealed he's trying to actually run to Frieren for help again. Bud will do whatever it takes to get out of the situation, and you know what? I feel it, man. These times are tough. In the end, though, push comes to shove, and the duo is tracked down and separated. This time, there's no way out. There's no safety net. The battle isn't on his terms. He is ambushed and faced with his toughest opponent yet. And it's not the demon in the dress, believe it or not. It's himself. And the signs are already showing themselves. From the first words he says about her axe, that he sees his master's technique. The battle with himself has already begun, and for the time being, he's already lost it. Because he saw the axe. He had a hunch, and he got in his own head about it. We cut away for a moment, and when we cut back, Stark's lying in a ditch. His adversary claiming that the battle is already over. A quick POV shot shows him getting back up, picking up his axe, and defiantly claiming that he isn't finished yet. He finds the strength to stand, and I just want to hug him, man. Like, seriously. Finding that strength is so hard, and I really empathize with that struggle. What we see next is Stark on the defense. He dodges, he blocks, he runs, he parries, he bleeds. He is struck again. Then we learn why. His enemy, Lenny, mimics the fighting styles of those she sees. It's like fighting a clone of warriors past, including his own teacher. She's seen him fight before, and she confirms Stark's worst fear. She's mimicking Eisen's moves. To Stark, that's it. He can't win this fight. Because he gets in his own way, he, more than anyone, is convinced that he can't win, and as a result, he is struck down again. Hard this time. I love that he actually does a great job on defense here. He only really falters when he listens to her explanation and then gets in his own head about fighting a mirror of his teacher. The last two strikes she does are almost identical to each other, and they're identical to a strike that Eisen does, and we are shown this too. The first swing he blocks easily and then shoves aside, but it's only when he reaffirms to himself that he can't win this fight, that he knows he's lost. Then the second swing strikes him down. He literally talks himself into getting pancaked. His lack of self-confidence causes him to fold before he's even given himself a chance, after he's already successfully defended himself from this same exact attack. The things we can convince ourselves that we're not capable of, it can be scary. As she looks down on him, she says something that strikes a chord with our boy. She says he finally fell, and as she walks away, Stark, still flattened on the ground, asks himself if he has indeed fallen, and it triggers an important memory for him. He remembers back to a time when he sparred with Eisen, a time where he was similarly face down on the ground. Eisen tells him to stand back up. Stark does, and on the way up, he says there's no way he can beat Eisen, to which Eisen agrees. Eisen tells him that he's stronger than Stark, but points out that despite the gap in strength, Stark stood back up anyway, which means he hasn't lost yet. And that's the line. That inspired me to make this video, to keep fighting my own battles, because in the end, whoever's still standing is the winner. And if you keep getting back up, then you haven't lost yet. Stark proves this by standing back up like a total badass, and when Lenny tells him that he should have stayed down since he had already lost, he looks her dead in the eye and tells her he's still standing. He tells her her strikes are weak sauce compared to Eisen's, and then they go at each other one more time, and this time, he tanks her final strike and mocks her, saying he shouldn't have even been so scared, and that her attacks lack weight. To me, he's really saying that they lack resolve. She has been so eager for this to be over, so quick to declare herself the winner, and now she's made her final mistake, underestimating the human spirit, the absolute will of the Giga Chad known as Stark before her. Before she can even back away, she is cleaved in half, demolished in a single strike. Without Stark being in his own way, she never even stood a chance. The last thing she sees is the moon, and she reaches out to it in vain. This show goes so hard. Good lord, dude. I love it. She hits him so many times throughout their fight, and he just gets up and gets up and gets up, and then she can't even take a single strike. And just like that, Stark has done it again. He faced his fears. He battles his self-doubt and pushes through. He's come out mentally stronger than he was before. The scene is so hype. I love it so much, and it's so amazing to see someone overcome themselves as an obstacle. It makes me feel like I can overcome my own struggles, and is overall a great takeaway for tough experiences in life. I wanted to make this video and talk about this because it really resonates with me, as I'm sure it resonates with a lot of people. I empathize, as I too can be my worst enemy. To give a little backstory of my own, I've been making YouTube videos in some way, shape, or form since about 2016. I've had a couple different channels, some that never saw the light of day, others that are still out there with like 10 views total. But I always came back to Desbug, and for one reason or another, I just wouldn't quit. I kept uploading, and for years, nothing came out of it. Only my closest friends and family would ever watch, and by all means, it was a complete and total failure, or at least that's one way to look at it. Since I never fully gave up, eventually, in late 2018, my channel started getting a little attention, and thanks to the fact that I kept at it, I was eventually able to cultivate that small amount of eyes on me into a channel that at one point had almost 500,000 subscribers. Something I considered a huge failure at one point was turned into a great success, and I thought it'd stay that way forever. However, for various reasons, my struggling mental health, chief among them, a great success slowly but surely turned into what I personally felt like was my biggest failure. Videos that used to get hundreds of thousands of views in a couple days struggled to reach my expectations. I lost tens of thousands of subscribers. My self-image slowly was degraded in front of my eyes. All the while, I felt like everything I tried would fail. It sent me down a path that, to this very moment, I still struggle against. There's a voice in my head that tells me I failed because it was all a fluke in the first place. I know so many people would love to have been in my position, and all I can focus on is how bad I messed it all up. I had my dream, and I lost it. It truly just felt heartbreaking, like there was nothing I could do. So my solution was to do nothing. If I didn't try anymore, then I couldn't fail anymore. The voice in my head had become my own worst enemy. It told me to give up, and the worst part of it all is it's my own voice. I know exactly how to hurt myself because I know what I'm most afraid of. So I jokingly say that, oh, I fell off, but it's all just to defend myself from other people saying it. In this way, I understand why, when faced with an enemy who mimics the teacher's technique, Stark immediately assumes he can't win. We can often be our worst enemy. The voice in my head is my own voice. I constantly tell myself how awfully I screwed up, tell myself there's no point in trying something new, because I can't possibly succeed. I mean, after all, look how bad I failed. Failed? Have I failed? The voice in my head calls my journey a failure. But what if it's wrong? What if I'm wrong? What if I looked at it a different way? The last time I uploaded a video was about 6 months ago, but does that mean I have failed? If I start something new, if I upload again, if I get up and work on this script, if I go to therapy and work on myself, if I keep putting in the work, if I struggle, if I fight, if I keep on trying, have I really failed? At what point do you consider something a failure? How can something be called a failure if you haven't given up? I don't want to give up on my dream. I want to keep going. I want to keep trying. And if I stand back up, then I haven't lost yet, have I? It all counts for me too, right? I mean, I made it further than most people will ever make it on YouTube. My channel has hundreds of videos, millions of views. That is a success. I did that. Hell, I have a freaking plaque to prove that I did that. One thing I feel like Stark helped me learn is that even though we can be our own worst enemy, as long as we keep standing back up, as long as we don't quit, we can overcome anything, even ourselves. I'm trying to get out of my own way. I'm trying to get back up, to start something new. And I think, much like we see with Stark, it's a process. It's not linear. You can take steps forward and still have struggles or even fall back down. As long as you have the determination to get back up though, then who says it's over, right? I know this is a pretty common idea in storytelling, but I just really feel like Frieren shows it beautifully. And for that, I'm very thankful. This show and these characters, along with the people around me, supporting me, have really helped me lately in my own journey. And if you see this video and something about it resonates with you, I hope in some way that maybe I helped you on your journey. Because after all, the journey never really ends, does it? Anyway, I think I've yapped enough for now, and I know your time is valuable, so thanks for spending it with Spinkya. See ya. Hey, if you watched this far into the video, I just want to say thank you. I've never worked on anything like this before, so please let me know how I did. I'd love to make more like this and improve the style, you know, keep on grinding. And yeah, if there's like another aspect about Frieren or any other show like you'd like to hear me talk about, please comment. I would love to talk about more stuff like this because I feel like I've got a professional yapper within me. So, and even if this doesn't get a lot of views, this is a big success because this is a new thing that I strived to work on and finished, hopefully. So, yeah, W for me. Later.